Yesterday, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa arrived Abuja, Nigeria, for a two-day state visit and the 10th session of the Binational Commission, BNC, between Africa's two largest economies. The visit to Nigeria forms part of a four-nation tour, which includes the republics of Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal. The BNC will provide an opportunity for South Africa and Nigeria to deepen relations across the spectrum of national priorities, including political cooperation and the strengthening of economic development cooperation. Ramaphosa's visit is coming on the heels of a travel ban imposed on flights from South Africa by several countries, after it alerted the World Health Organization on the existence of the Omicron COVID-19 variant. The travel ban imposed on South African flights was condemned by the Nigerian government, which said it would go ahead with Ramaphosa's state visit to the West African country. Now joining us from Abuja to discuss the meeting between Africa's two largest economies and how the BNC can help to strengthen relations and end the unhealthy competition among the citizens of both countries.
Has witnessed the signing of new Memoranda of Understanding between Nigeria and South Africa in diverse areas, including youth development, women and child empowerment, and political consultations, critical areas that will lead to increased people-to-people contact. Existing memorandums of understanding signed during previous binational commission meetings were also reviewed. These include memorandums of understanding on military cooperation, power, cooperation in the field of geology, mining and mineral processing, oil and gas, and several others.
It is furthermore a means for our ministers to interact and share ideas about new opportunities in trade and investment between our two countries. We want to improve the balance of trade between our two countries, and we are extremely encouraged by the interest expressed by a number of Nigerian businesses in accessing the South African market. We are particularly encouraged by the interest from Nigerian banks, and it has been recommended they work with the South African regulatory authorities to facilitate their access into the financial sector in South Africa.
Now joining us to discuss the outcome of the state visit of the South African president to Nigeria and the outcome of the meetings that have been held is Ambassador Thamsanqa Mseleku, South Africa's High Commissioner to Nigeria. Good morning, Ambassador Mseleku, and welcome to the Morning Show.
Good morning, sir, and good morning to your viewers.
Well, good morning to have you with us. Very quickly, President Ramaphosa is on a four-nation tour across West Africa. What is the significance of that? And then, secondly, if you could comment on that special relationship between Nigeria and South Africa that President Buhari referred to yesterday.
Firstly, President Ramaphosa's visit to West Africa is very significant because it actually underlies the ties that we are trying to make between and connections between African regions, particularly West Africa being also Francophone in some parts of it. You will see that the president is visiting some African countries that are actually French-speaking. But it's more significant in that he decided to start in Nigeria because the two economies and the two countries are actually very critical in terms of the leadership they can provide in ensuring that we achieve the Agenda 2063 that we have set for ourselves. So it was very significant and important for him to touch base with Nigeria and to engage with President Buhari to discuss a whole range of matters, political and economical. that's what the objective was.
Well, it's been really exciting to hear about the Nigeria-South Africa Youth Dialogue for Peace and Security, Youth Development and Political Persuasion. Can you tell us how that idea came about, how it was developed, and what the hopes are for this youth dialogue?
Well, actually, sometimes they say from the heap of dung, flowers will flourish and grow. This actually emerged as an idea just after the unfortunate incidents that took place both in South Africa and Nigeria, where young people started engaging each other and attacking businesses on the basis that perhaps in South Africa there was a perceived xenophobia against Nigerians. And it became clear that actually it's important for young people to begin to understand one another. They are Africans. They need to actually know each other's backgrounds, each understanding, their cultures, and so on. So we thought there should be some kind of a dialogue that we establish between these young people. This was also based on the university students who came to our embassy to actually ask for an opportunity to talk to their counterparts. And that's where it grew, but it actually then became an idea beyond that, which is beginning to say that actually young people are the future of Africa and they are the future of these two countries. So we should actually entrench this within the system of the BNC, hence the launch by the two presidents yesterday.
Ambassador, the feeling out there is this: South Africa does not like Nigeria. That's what a lot of people in Nigeria feel. I mean, if you ask them, what's your opinion between Nigeria and South African relationship? And they'll also refer to the way Nigerians are being hurt, sometimes manhandled by the police in South Africa, sometimes even leading to their death. And the argument is, oh, justice has not been done as regards all of this. And then the xenophobic attacks, it did happen. Other Africans were hurt. Nigerians were hurt. Nigerian businesses were damaged. We airlifted thousands of Nigerians back, hundreds of Nigerians, I should say, back through Air Peace Airlines. Those Nigerians, I'm not sure if most of them have gone back to South Africa. What do you say about all of this? And how can we bring peace back? Well, it's interesting that we actually refer back to that incident because there's been a lot of debate about it. First of all, Nigerians have a perspective that South Africans don't like them. But I spent time in the embassy dealing with visa applications, and they're growing, thousands and thousands of them, growing to go to South Africa. So this is a real contradiction in terms. If Nigerians feel that they're not liked in South Africa, why would they be going to South Africa? Why would they be applying to go there in their numbers? It's because the reality is actually much more different from the perception. If you look at the Nigerians that are actually active in South Africa from various fields, you have professors that are anchoring our universities, you have scientists that are actually part of our scientific community, you have doctors that are actually part of the health system in South Africa, and so on and so on, and they have never actually said, now we're packing our bags because South Africans don't like us. So we were trying to actually move away from that kind of discourse because it actually leads to accusations and counter-accusations on the basis of some kind of perceptions and, in fact, some story-mongering in very serious situations. I don't want to dwell into the kinds of story-mongering in relation to even those incidents. I just want to say that one of the things that the two presidents actually agreed on the basis of what was recommended to them by the ministers and the officials was that we actually finalized an agreement on early warning mechanisms. The mechanisms that would actually allow us to learn as early as possible where such problems may arise And of course, it's not true that they're manhandled by our police. If you actually talk to your embassy in South Africa, you talk to your consular general in actually Pretoria, you'll see how much cooperation between the police and the Nigerian High Commission and the consulate on dealing with matters such as that. And where police are involved, just like when they do something wrong in relation to South Africans, they are dealt with like any other person. There's no discrimination because now they tackled Nigerians. And in fact, some people in South Africa feel that the police are actually in cahoots with some of the criminals who come from Nigeria or from any other world. Criminals are criminals. We must move away from this notion that this is a Nigerian criminal and a South African criminal. All of them are criminals, whether they come to Nigeria to do criminal acts or South Africa to do criminal acts. So the early warning mechanisms were meant to actually deal with such matters.
Well, Ambassador, I mean, yesterday, Nigeria and South Africa signed, another memorandum of understanding as part of the outcome of that binational commission. But before you joined us, I had said, look, we've had this binational commission for quite a while, and that usually there are no proper follow-ups, in terms of some of those decisions that are taken. The areas, geology, mining, women development, education, health, security, and defense cooperation. Why do you think that, look, we just signed these memoranda and there's no follow-through? Could that be a fallout of the rivalry between Nigeria and South Africa on a number of issues? Or it's just a case of the officials not paying enough attention?
Interesting, the two presidents actually noted the point you are making, that perhaps they should now begin to be directly involved in monitoring the implementation. It's not necessarily true that all of them are actually not followed up. In fact, we always say that in the security cluster between the defense ministries, that's the most active area of implementation in any of these agreements. The agreements they reach, the agreements they implement, they take forward a number of matters. Similarly, in you've mentioned the geological space. One of the things that Nigeria was actually urging was for our South African scientists to come and assist in mapping out the mining potential of Nigeria in some parts of Nigeria, because you need to map up your resources in a way that suggests what kind of resources are there beneath the earth for Nigeria. That process has been ongoing. It started already. The implementation happens behind the scenes in the quiet corners when people don't have the television focus. However, it is true that some of these agreements actually remain on paper and there's no implementation. And that is partly because I think in international relations there's this notion that we just visit each other, we sign agreements, and that's how we keep the friendships. But these two presidents are very clear that that is not the kind of relationship they are looking for. They are going to supervise, they are going to want to have reports, joint reports on what the implementation is, because they are very serious about getting this actually working. So this time around, I promise you, in 2 years' time, when you actually see President Buhari in South Africa, we won't be saying, was there half implementation or was there partial implementation? I promise you, more of these agreements would have been implemented.
Right. There's also a perception, or no, the reality of lopsidedness, where you have South African businesses been so well represented in Nigeria, and the opposite is simply not true for Nigerian businesses in South Africa. And people point to certain, obstacles in the way, all kinds of bureaucracy that makes it hostile to Nigerian businesses to flourish in South Africa the way your businesses are doing here. What has been done to address that specifically? Again,
the two presidents focused on this problem. It's not a one-way problem. yes, in the sense of the lopsidedness or in the balance of businesses, less Nigerian businesses are operating in South Africa. And this is one of the examples of the implementation areas. When President Buhari was in South Africa in 2019, this issue was raised, and it was specifically referring to Access Bank, and it was referring to Air Peace. Today, you and I know that Access Bank has already opened a bank in South Africa and it's active. You and I know that Air Peace is already flying into South Africa. And so the issue was that we must encourage more businesses that want to go to South Africa from Nigeria to do so, particularly in the financial sector. And we said, take the leaf from how Access Bank managed that kind of situation. But similarly, as I was saying, that South African businesses, though very much represented here, are actually pulling out because of the environment that they face in this particular market. And that was one of the issues that the two presidents had to look at, because it may be true that we're overrepresented here, but we are gradually actually getting our businesses pulling out of this market for various reasons that are market related. So this is an issue that the two presidents are trying to address, because it is actually not going to be good for the Africa Free Trade Area Agreement.
So there's also a perception, speaking about the African Free Trade Area, AFCTA, that it's going to be skewed, to certain countries that are more industrial. And, South Africa has been mentioned as part of them. Question is, how can we bring back, that level of equality so that some countries, or countries like Nigeria, for instance, does not feel, oh yeah, South Africa has the upper hand in the relationship, when AFCTA kicks off fully?
Well, our two ministers of trade started talking about this matter just before Nigeria actually finally ratified the Africa Free Trade Agreement. They actually looked at areas of strength from both sides. And there was an agreement that when Nigeria would like support to strengthen, for example, there was a very close talk about the automobile industry in Nigeria. We have a very strong automobile industry that does the full production of cars. And Nigeria is still doing the assembly and wants to move to that level. And of course, the technology and the skills that are there in South Africa, there was an agreement that we would actually look at assisting each other in that area so that we can strengthen the Nigerian capacity for automobile production. And there are other areas that they identified. So the way of doing that is to actually identify what kind of strengths and potential Nigeria wants to actually develop. And where South Africa can support, we work together to support those. But the second area is that if we work together, because we are the biggest markets here and everybody is targeting both of us, so we need to work together in the negotiations to ensure the standards or the rules of origin are actually at the level where they protect Nigeria and they protect South Africa. So if there's that protection, then Nigeria would have nothing to fear from South Africa in terms of its strengths. Instead, there will be kind of cooperation and capacity building for both countries to actually lead in this regard.
Well, Ambassador, just a clarification from you. Earlier on, where you were responding to the question about xenophobia and people-to-people relations, you said you don't imagine that there's any problem because many Nigerians come to the High Commission to ask for visas for Nigeria. Do you have an idea of the number of Nigerians on an annual basis that apply for South African visas, either for business or tourism, and the number that actually, are granted those visas? And then secondly, President Ramaphosa is going to go to Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, and Senegal. Do you have an idea of the specific emphasis as it moves from one country to the other, beyond the general point you made earlier about South Africa trying to connect with West Africa? There must be specific interest from one country to the other.
Well, let me start with the first question. Just every week, if you take our Lagos office, in 1 week, they actually deal with, on average, 400 applications for visa, on average, as such. And here in Abuja, they deal with 200 applications for visa. One of the challenges that we still need to deal with, and we're gradually getting there, is actually the quality of the documentation that people submit to support their visa applications. But we are gradually clearing the dirt in that regard, in that people are beginning to realize that the best way is to actually submit proper documentation and not documentation that is suspect, because in the past this was actually very predominant. We had almost 60% of those applications or more actually not very much credible in various ways. And I can assure you that plus minus 60% or so of those applications now are actually granted. With the business people, we are actually agreeing, and we continue to implement longer-term visas for them. We are now looking at actually ensuring that they get up to 10 years of visa granted to them because we are improving the situation. We do agree that there is a challenge in relation to the turnaround time because of the capacities in our embassies. And that's one of issues that was discussed in the consular forum that met here. With regard to your second question, each country has its own particular reasons. There's a peace summit in Senegal that President Ramaphosa is also going to be attending, but beginning the first talks between us and South Africa, and Senegal, this is just an initiation of a process. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have a joint ministerial committee, the JSC, which is actually the mechanism similar to a BNC, but at the level of the Ministers of Foreign Affairs. This is actually, they are very excited in Côte d'Ivoire because we haven't had such a big visit that is focused on actually the relationship between the two, also bringing a number of business people from South Africa to look at the opportunities that they want us to look at in that country. Of course, with Ghana, it is an ongoing relationship that is actually being strengthened, and so it's more a consolidation of the relationship there. Of course, also with the business opportunities. So it's different emphasis in different countries. Here, it was precisely to ensure that we continue that relationship and the bond that binds us together to lead Africa.
Right, I've always wondered, when the history of apartheid has been taught in South Africa, does the efforts that Nigeria made in that fight, does that make the curriculum? Because as we're discussing earlier, everybody from our heads of state to even students who, gave their pocket money to fight apartheid, even our civil servants donated what was called Mandela tax. Does that make the curriculum? And I ask this not from the perspective of, Nigeria did so much for South Africa, because South Africa also really supported us in Nigeria in our fight to rid ourselves of the brutal military junta of Sani Abacha. So I do have to say that South Africa has also supported us. But I've always wondered if that's a part of the curriculum, because I think it ought to be.
Well, South Africa had so many countries in the African continent, in the world, that actually supported apartheid in various ways. And if you look at our curriculum, it has actually captured the internationalism of the apartheid struggle. It doesn't specifically say it doesn't go deeply into, okay, let's look at what Nigeria did, or let's look at what Tanzania did, what Zambia did, what Angola did, and what Egypt did where our President Mandela actually trained. In Algeria as such, when he went out of South Africa. It's an overall African perspective, but with specific things of examples here and there. That is why the youth dialogue for us is critical, because it has to actually be able to say to our young people, let's not forget our history. Maybe for you who are in the country itself, you didn't, because apartheid didn't tell you much about what other people are saying, are doing for you. Only those people who are in the African National Congress, the Pan-Africanist movement, who are in exile, understood those kinds of sacrifices that Nigerians, as you quote, actually undertook to support apartheid. But because, of course, there was a propaganda and blacking out of news, the real South Africans on the ground didn't specifically know what the specific role of a particular country would have been, or the peoples of those countries would have been. They just knew in general that we have support from Nigeria, we have support from Cuba, we have support from all kinds of countries in the world. Now we need our generations to actually, as they talk to each other, begin to say, oh, is that so? As you describe it, that people had what is called the Mandela tax, I'm sure that the average South African would not know that kind of reality, except those that were in the liberation movement, also those that were in exile for many years. But the average South Africans would not necessarily know those truths. That's what we are trying to bring out. Even here, many Nigerians I found have very little knowledge of apartheid. The new generation has actually no understanding of why in the first place those Nigerians were making those sacrifices. So that's why when I was engaging with some of your ministers who were involved, and they were students, actually I did say to them, you must be given the platform to speak to those young people, to say, I was involved. I actually donated my trousers that I was not using. I actually paid tax. I also demonstrated in the universities. That is something that is not known. And if you have people given that platform, then even Nigerians that are young would actually begin to know the contribution of Nigeria to the anti-apartheid struggle. They don't know even yet.
Okay. So 2 questions real quickly. Number 1 will be, you said South African companies are pulling out of Nigeria, but the last time I checked, most South African conglomerates that are here make the bulk of their profits in Africa or in the world from Nigeria. The breweries, the list goes on, telcos and the likes. So what is happening to those ones pulling out? That's one. Number 2, we have a great security challenge in Nigeria. At some point, a couple of years back, we tried to get weapons from South Africa. We all know how that case went, helicopter and all of that. What is South Africa doing, talking to Nigeria as regards the fight against insurgency we're dealing with here, with arms purchase?
Well, let me start with the last question. As I said, the cooperation between the two militaries is actually at its highest. And they are engaging in all kinds of things, exchanges of training. Some of the materials that are actually supposed to come from South Africa to be donated to Nigeria, just the technical processes are actually preventing that at this stage. But there's a lot of things that have been identified by Nigeria to say, please actually give us that stuff that perhaps you are no longer using. It can still be useful in Nigeria, or that stuff that technology transfer so that we can develop our own capacity in the defense industry. There is a lot that is happening in that area. Sometimes best not discussed because it is related to security and the capacities of Nigeria to deal with insurgency. To say now this is the capacity we have and so on, these are the tactics we're going to use, is not actually something that people in security want to discuss in public. But I can assure you there's a lot of engagement. Those incidents of just the helicopter, this was part of the rivalry with other defense industry people from other countries. But in reality, there's a lot of close cooperation in support of security in Nigeria and in Africa as a whole. With regard to the first question of the businesses, yes, we can agree that some of our South African conglomerates are actually making big profits, as you call them, in Nigeria and in the African continent, just like any other big conglomerates from Europe are doing the same here in Africa, in Nigeria, big conglomerates from Japan, from everywhere else in the world. We shouldn't actually be seeing that as a negative issue. What I'm suggesting to you is that the regulatory environment has actually made perhaps some of them actually move out for various reasons. For example, it's becoming very difficult for those profits that you are talking about to be repatriated to different countries from Nigeria. That's a known reality which we are aware of. Some of the issues have to do with whether they themselves as conglomerates are able to actually comply with the tax regime here. At the same time, for them to actually have a clear, systematic, rule-governed tax regime which doesn't shift from time to time depending on the environment, and a number of other matters. And these are issues that the business people themselves were discussing. These are issues that, remember, most of these businesses in Nigeria, which are South African, are led by Nigerians themselves. Mainly 90% of them, the CEOs or the chairpersons, are actually Nigerians, and they are Nigerian investors in the boards of those. They are the ones that are raising these issues. It's not just because they are South African as business. So that reality is actually there, despite the fact that there are those that are actually continuing to actually stay, but we'll slog it, we'll look at what we do. But please help us, Mr. President, to engage with your counterpart to deal with these issues. Just like Nigerian business say, please help us, Mr. President, to talk to your counterpart, because we want to enter that market called South Africa.
Well, thank you so much for your time this morning, Ambassador Mseleku.